40,000 years ago, someone left you a message. You can still read it today. It isn't written, it isn't carved. It's a hand pressed against cold stone, waiting in complete darkness. And whoever left it had no idea you would ever exist. But here you are, reading it. There is a cave in Indonesia called Liang Tedongengue. Inside, on a wall that hasn't seen sunlight in 40,000 years, there is a hand, a human hand, pressed flat against stone. Red pigment blown around the edges. Outline perfect. That hand is roughly the same size as yours. Same fingers, same proportions. The person who made it was, in almost every biological way, you. No written language, no electricity, no recorded history. And yet, they crawled into the deepest part of a cave, in total darkness. Mixed red pigment, pressed their hand against cold stone, and left. The question is why? And the answer will change how you think about every photograph you have ever taken, every name you have ever signed, every comment you have ever left behind. We thought we knew where this started. We were wrong. For most of the 20th century, cave handprints were considered European. France, Spain, one culture, one explanation. Then Indonesia. Same technique, same red ochre, same hand stencil. 40,000 years old, other side of the planet. Then Argentina, Australia, the Sahara, Borneo, different continents, different cultures, thousands of miles apart. All of them pressed their hands against a wall. All of them blew pigment around it. All of them left. This was not one culture copying another. The dates make that impossible. Something about the human mind, wherever it appeared on Earth, kept doing exactly this. The same gesture, the same red pigment, the same hand, left behind. Handprint. Then, researchers looked at who was actually making them. For decades, the assumption was simple. Male hunters, shamans, powerful men. Nobody questioned it. Nobody measured it. Then Dean Snow measured the hands. Finger ratios, palm width, thumb proportions. Result? Most measurable hands. Belonged to women. Not hunters, not shamans, women, teenagers, children, everything the old story had erased. The explanation that stood for a century was built on assumption, not evidence, which raises a harder question. Why would a woman, a teenager, a child, crawl into the deepest part of a cave and press their hand against a wall? Handprint. The caves themselves gave the next clue. The handprints were not near the entrance, not where people cooked or slept. They clustered in the deepest chambers, sections requiring crawling through narrow tunnels, in total darkness, and once you were far enough inside, wind, gone. Birds, gone. Other people, gone. Just your breathing, just your heartbeat, just cold stone. Some researchers argue this was not accidental. The difficulty was the point. The darkness was the point. You had to earn your way in. Leave everything ordinary behind. And only there, you pressed your hand against the wall. Handprint. Now look at the handprints closely. Many show bent fingers, missing segments, odd angles, old injuries, real damage, not idealized, not perfect, not symbols of strength, real hands. Damaged hands. The actual shape of specific people who had lived specific lives, pressing their imperfect, particular, living hand against cold stone. Not saying, here is what I believe. Not saying, here is what I can do. Saying something simpler and stranger. Here is the shape of me. I was here, handprint. Then the strangest clue appeared. Not in a cave, in a nursery. Watch a baby in front of a mirror. They reach toward the reflection. Confused. They do not know it is them. Watch the same child 1 year later. Something shifts. Recognition arrives. They see themselves. And almost immediately, they reach for something to mark. A wall, a window, wet cement. Nobody teaches this. It simply appears, self-appears. Need to leave a mark, appears. Baby, mirror, stranger. Toddler, mirror, self. Immediately marks a wall. Ancient human, self, arrives, crawls into a cave, presses a hand against stone. 40,000 years apart. The same sequence, the same impulse. Handprint. Because here is what makes the handprints strange. They are not paintings, not symbols, not records, not messages. They are the direct impression of a specific person, not a representation of a hand. The actual hand, the actual size of a human being who lived 40,000 years ago and whose name we will never know. You cannot make a handprint by accident. You have to place your hand deliberately. Hold it still. Blow the pigment. Wait. Pull your hand away. And look at what remains. That moment of pulling the hand away is when everything happened. What you are looking at is not art. It is evidence. You were there. You were real. The world registered your presence. Handprint. You do this too. Not with pigment. You take photographs not because you need to remember, but because you need the moment to have been real. Camera. You sign your name somewhere it didn't need to be signed. Signature. You post something nobody needed to see. Comment. You leave your name on something that will outlast the afternoon, not for information, not for communication, for something older, something almost embarrassing to say out loud. I was here. I existed. Something of me was real enough to leave a mark. Camera. Signature. Comment. Handprint. The same thing. 40,000 years apart. Handprint. 40,000 years ago. A human crawled into complete darkness. They mixed red pigment. They pressed their hand against cold stone. They blew. They waited. They pulled their hand away and looked at what they had made. We don't know what they felt, but I think you do. That specific quiet. After making something. When the thing exists outside of you. When it no longer needs your presence to be real, the hand is still on that wall. 40,000 years later. Same size as yours. Which means the message was never lost. It was simply waiting for someone with the same mind, the same need, the same question underneath everything. Was I here? The hand says yes. You were here. You were real. And now, 40,000 years later, so were they.